It was supposed to be just another Sunday afternoon. Jake Miller, a single dad and Army veteran, sat in the corner booth of a small town diner with his 8-year-old daughter Emma. She was coloring on a paper placemat, her legs swinging under the table, while Jake quietly sipped his black coffee, the kind of coffee that tasted more like habit than comfort. Outside, the sun beat down on rows of Harley Davidsons lined up in front of the diner. The roar of engines and bursts of laughter filled the air. A group of bikers had rolled in about 15 minutes ago, loud, tough-looking guys in leather jackets with skull patches taking up half the parking lot. Jake tried not to pay them any attention. He'd learned long ago to stay calm, to mind his own business. He had seen far worse than loud bikers. But when one of them, a burly man with tattoos creeping up his neck, looked over and smirked, Jake knew trouble was brewing. "Hey, soldier boy," the man called across the diner, his voice booming. "What's with the haircut? You still think you're fighting wars for Uncle Sam?" The laughter that followed cut through the air like a blade. Jake's jaw tightened. He looked down at Emma, hoping she hadn't heard. But she had. Her crayon had stopped moving. "Daddy, why are they being mean?" she whispered. Jake gave a small smile. "They're just having a bad day, sweetheart." The bikers weren't done. Another one leaned back in his chair, his boots up on the table. What kind of man brings his kid to eat alone on a Sunday? No woman wants a washed-up soldier, huh? That one hurt. Not because of the insult, but because it was true. Jake's wife Marissa had died 3 years ago in a car accident while he was still deployed overseas. By the time he came home, everything had changed. He was a father learning to parent alone, to grieve quietly, to rebuild what life had taken from him. He stood slowly, his hand steady on the table. "Come on, Em. Let's go." As they walked toward the door, one of the bikers stuck his boot out, tripping Jake just enough to make him stumble. A few of them laughed again, one whistling mockingly. Jake straightened, his face expressionless. He didn't say a word. He just helped Emma into the truck and buckled her in. Then he pulled out his phone. He stared at it for a second. His finger hovered over a name in his contacts, Sarge. It had been months since they last talked. But today he pressed call. The line clicked. "Jakey, everything okay, brother?" Jake's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "I've got a situation down at Mel's diner. Some guy's disrespecting a veteran and his little girl." There was a pause. Then the voice said, "We'll be there in 5. Jake smiled faintly. "Roger that." He hung up, turned to Emma, and said softly, "It's okay, baby. Just give it a minute." 5 minutes later, the sound of engines filled the air again, this time louder, deeper, and far more organized. A convoy of motorcycles rolled into the parking lot, their riders wearing patches that read, "These weren't your average bikers." These were ex-soldiers, men who had served with Jake in the military, men who knew loyalty, discipline, and honor. The group parked silently, lined up like soldiers ready for inspection. The leader, a tall man with silver hair and a firm expression, walked straight into the diner. "Afternoon, boys," he said to the bikers at the counter. "I hear you've been giving my friend here a hard time." The laughter in the diner died instantly. The air went cold. The biker who had mocked Jake earlier tried to play it cool. "Hey, we were just joking around." The veteran leader took a step closer, his voice calm but heavy with authority. "There's joking and then there's disrespect. And where we come from, we don't tolerate disrespect, especially not toward a man who's given his life for this country." The bully's face flushed. His friends suddenly found their food very interesting. The veteran leader didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't threaten anyone. He just looked each of them in the eye, and that was enough. Jake finally stepped forward, holding Emma's hand. "It's fine, Sarge. They learned their lesson." Sarge gave a small nod. "Yeah, but it's good for people to be reminded sometimes." As the Iron Valor members walked back to their bikes, one of them crouched beside Emma and handed her a small patch from his jacket. An embroidered eagle with the words, "Honor, Courage, Brotherhood." He smiled. "For you, little one. So you always know your dad's one of the good guys." Emma's eyes lit up as she hugged the patch to her chest. "Thank you, mister." Jake's throat tightened. For the first time in a long time, he felt something shift inside him, not anger, not bitterness, but pride. When the Iron Valor bikers rode off, the entire diner fell silent. Even the ones who'd laughed earlier avoided Jake's eyes. The waitress, an older woman with kind eyes, came over and quietly said, "Your meal's on the house, honey, and thank you for your service." Jake nodded, his eyes misty. "Thank you, ma'am." Outside, as he helped Emma into the truck again, she looked up at him and asked, "Daddy, were those your friends?" Jake smiled softly. "Yeah, sweetheart, the best kind there is." She thought for a moment, then said, "You know, they were really nice, even though they looked scary." Jake chuckled. "Yeah, sometimes the toughest-looking people have the kindest hearts." As they drove away, the sun was setting over the highway, golden light spilling across the road ahead. Jake reached over and squeezed Emma's hand. "You remember that, Em? Never judge people by how they look, and always stand up for what's right, but do it with kindness." She smiled and nodded. "Like you did today." Jake looked out at the fading sky. Exactly like that. And for the first time in a long while, he felt at peace, knowing that sometimes the real strength isn't in how hard you hit back, but in how you choose to respond with dignity, faith, and compassion. True strength isn't about power or revenge. It's about respect, integrity, and the quiet courage to stand tall, even when the world tries to push you down.